Hello, everyone. Welcome to Script or Scrapped, a one-shot theater and writing podcast hosted by myself, Kian Kaufman, along with some others. Introduce yourselves.
Even yet.
I'm Joseph Campbell.
Alrighty. So, just as a little bit of background, all of us have done theater for what I would call an extensive period of time. Yeah, Joseph, I think you joined theater the latest out of the three of us. When was it? Like sophomore, freshman year of high school?
Yeah, it was middle school.
Oh, middle school. Okay, yeah. Alrighty. So, the first question we're going to discuss is how much can a poor script affect a production? We've all been in shows that the scripts have been kind of at the very least. So, obviously, actors and directors play a huge part in what makes a production. But since the script is like the skeleton of the whole thing, it's the base part, it is got to have some effect. So, what do you guys think? How much can like a scripts on the more poor side really affect the end product?
Uh,
Go first.
okay. Um, so it's kind of nuanced because I think that like a lot of the weight does go on to the directors and the actors to make like any production good, and even like the best script isn't gonna churn out like a great performance if no one's in it and like they don't do their best work. Um, but when the script is bad, I think it's more complicated because you end up in this situation where you're kind of working with ankle weights. And I do think that you can have the worst script imaginable and still make an entertaining production if you have people who are really dedicated to giving the audience a good time. Um, but at the very least, it's definitely more effort involved.
I definitely think there's something to be said about that. Like, um, I have been in. This is one of the questions that's a little bit harder for myself because thinking back, there are one or two scripts that I've been a part of that have been kind of iffy, but I don't think any of them have been bad. But like when it comes to parts of a script that are more poorly written, it it makes it harder to sell and makes it harder to really project the proper, like try to provoke the proper emotion out of the audience. And it's not like it's strange when it comes to poor writing in stuff like this, in like productions and like even movies and stuff that you act out. It's easier to find when things really feel off in the sense of people saying words and it just not sounding right. So I think that people can, the actors and the director can really uh like try their best, and I definitely think you can make a good production with a poor script. But it's there's gonna have some element missing, and you're gonna have to like put on a whole lot of extra like pizzazz and like interest to really overcome that like kind of mountain. Kevin, you've been in a show before where like you have had negative impressions of the script, I believe. So like, how did
Are we bringing up the Christmas spark this early into the discussion?
I mean, if you want, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like drag it in from you, but
Oh
like,
no, by all means, I think it definitely is here.
so
So for context, this was uh, I was like halfway through high school at this point, so I'd been acting for like 8 or 9 years, and it was to the point where I was, trying to finally take myself seriously and like find my dramatic curve so much because I've been doing mostly comedies. Because if adults are going to watch child actors, they chuckle out of it in a way that isn't just fun of poor performances. So anyway, I digress. Trying to find my dramatic curve, and a good director friend of mine who also writes small scripts on the side came to me with a show called The Christmas Spark. We were doing three one acts at the local theater, and she figured she'd throw one that she had written herself into it. It a good friend of mine, I figured, I'll give it a look-see over. And in the role she had in mind for me was Santa Claus, which is already a riot because I am a beanpole of a man myself. It's not your ordinary Santa. This was a Santa who was well versed in martial arts, specifically kung fu, of course.
The most marketable martial art.
It's not a Christmas movie, not movie, stage play. So immediately I had a negative script. It was written the casting child actors, and at this point I no longer considered myself a child actor because every high schooler who's been acting for more than 5 years thinks they're the top of the town.
Yeah.
And let's say it's Kung Fu Santa's misadventures, hanging out with New Jersey Grinch, who's just like a 15-year-old girl wearing a cheetah printed like weird cardigan thing, hair in a bun, walking around with a cane. New Jersey accent, I think, was added afterwards, but anyway, I have forgotten the point of what I was talking about. Poor script.
Yeah.
Right. I think really there's only so many ways you could polish a turd and make it presentable, right?
Understandable.
And the problem here was that the story was a child receives an ornament from her grandmother, and the grandmother says it was a gift from Kung Fu Santa because they go way back. And then evil Jersey Grinch shows up. I forget what it was. The Grunch, I believe, is what was written into the script. Says she hates Christmas because steals and kidnaps Christmas, and Kung Fu Santa and Small Child have to rescue them, and they do. And shit prevails. Again, I was 16 while doing this, so
Did you?
I tried my best. But
do you think that the?
I think the show would have fallen at its ass, but the show was so ridiculous. Like most of the performances were so stilted. I think the audience didn't know how to take it. They were just kind of trying to find things to find entertaining in this story. It's clearly like meant to help children appreciate Christmas, but then again, it's accomplishing it in a way that every Christmas play or Christmas movie does. It really doesn't have to try. It just has to throw the word Christmas around a few times, and families will be into it.
So, going off of that with the idea of I wanted to. Because you said that like the performances and how the audience thought of it, you haven't really brought up your director yet. So moving on to like our next question is, how does a director's interpretation / understanding of a script change a production? And that's, I think, a really cool like segue because your director wrote that script, correct?
Yes.
So were they acknowledging of how like ridiculous it was? Were they trying to not take it seriously, or did they have an interpretation of their own writing that kind of fogged its ability to do well?
Oh, I think they were entirely aware of like the camp nature, how ridiculous this was going to look to anybody.
Okay.
I mean, you don't write a show with Kung Fu Santa anyhow. This is for laughs.
That's very fair. Joseph, you've been in
I have a lot to talk about in regards to camp.
Please do.
Okay, so this fall I was in a production of Psycho Beach Party, written by Charles Busch, which is a film written, I believe, in the 70s that is a spoof on 1960s beach movies, which are generally regarded to be not very good. And going into it, it's a very, very campy play. I was in a drag role as the mother of the main character, who like beats her with a jock strap and like ties her up in her room when she tries to go to a party at the beach. The girl wants to be a surfer, but she has multiple personalities because she has like guilt over her twin brother falling off a swing set and dying when they were children.
Jesus.
And
Okay.
so this is a script that was written to be campy and jank, for lack of a better word, over 40 years ago. And going into it, our theater director, who was one of the professors at the University of Farmington, was very, very adamant about the way to make like such a ridiculous thing work, which is to make it feel as sincere as possible.
Okay.
Because there's always the temptation with a bad script to give as an actor, give like a knowing wink wonk at the audience, being like, haha, this is silly, right? But if you make it seem like you're living in this universe that was created with whatever the writing was, where for some reason referring to a person as being blotto in a noodly sort of way, having a complete geek out that's not just a fizzle in their research center. If you say that as though that's a perfectly reasonable way to speak, like the audience might not get it, but they'll be like, it punches harder.
So
if you make it seem like you're living in this weird reality rather than trying to pitch this to the reality that you actually live in.
So basically what you're saying is that when it comes to this script in particular, it was your director's ability to, like, it could have been in the direction of, like, instead of playing up the camp, your director chose for you to do a different style, and you believe the show was more successful because of that?
I would say so for sure, because it's not that you're not playing up the camp, and I think that she's a very, very smart lady. It's that there's a certain direct amount of camp that is written into the play, and if you deliver that, the campiness doesn't come from the actors performing in a campy manner. The amount of times the word camp was said during this production is insane. However, basically campiness doesn't come from being like, yeehaw, look how silly I am. It comes from doing yeehaw silly things while the audience, like, let the audience be like, yeehaw, this is silly, rather than pitching, wow, look how silly this is. Am I right, fellas?
Okay. So it's like the actor like playing it straight and not directly telling the audience how to react, but the audience knows how to react because not imbeciles.
Exactly.
Respect for the audience is huge, and I do want to, off of this question, I think it's a really cool thing to bring up. So, in sophomore year of high school, Joseph and I were in a one-act production of a show called Betweenity.
Yeah.
And it was a very unique show. It was basically about it was a bunch of different, like, I might be misusing this word, but it was a bunch of different vignettes of, like,
Yep.
Just different scenarios, and it was like showcasing how the silence during conversation means more than words. And there was one scene in particular that neither Joseph or I were in, but we saw rehearsed and saw the process, and it was really interesting because in
Is
the
this cafeteria?
No, this is the one that Alex and Lucia did. That was like basically in the script. It gave them 2 words, and then it would be dot. And in the actual show, all they did was say those first few words and then, like, start being awkward and quiet again. And the way that our directors handled it, rather, because we had 2 of them, they said that what you should do is take every single line and create a conversation in your head and have actual lines thought out so that when you say the first two words, you can say them with intent and then cut yourself off. So the two of you know what you're discussing. And when they brought it before us and they showed it to us, the directors asked, can you guys tell what the conversation is about even though you're not hearing anything? And I can't remember, was somebody able to guess it? I think somebody was. It was like a weird, it was like a breakup conversation or something like that. It was like one of them was cheating on the other was what they'd come up with. And it was,
I believe so.
Yeah. And I can't remember if somebody was able to guess it or not, but it like, they were able to present it in such a different way. And
it gave off like a really sincere energy.
It did. And so I think that like, because the directors were able to like make that choice with the script and like,
they created a subtext.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that you can change it. I don't really personally have any experiences with a director that like had a more negative impact on a show because of the way they understood a script. But I've definitely seen a lot of directors do really well. Kevin, do you have a short story you'd like to enlighten us with before we head on to the next question?
I mean, it's hard because it was so recent and my emotions will definitely flare here. But in our recent staging of Good Kids, I think our director tried, to... The problem with that show, and the problem with the way our director looked at it, is they saw it as the cast of characters being like a Greek chorus. So it's just the interactions between the characters are more important than the characters themselves. Which, can work. And the characters were not written to have, these big personalities. They were written to be everyday people. So that, the situation at hand, in Good Kids specifically, the whole, how does a town handle a rape? The show is more impactful, yes, if you could put yourself in one of these characters' shoes. I feel like because they tried to make the interactions more important than the characters themselves, the characters weren't necessarily fleshed out. So if you weren't going into the show expecting to be able to find a character to put yourself into and to sort of, like, I would pick somebody and, like, ride with them until the end and just sort of try to get an understanding of how they feel. If you're just walking in and trying to view it as a show, it's lost in translation. You have to be able to insert yourself into the situation. If you can't do that, you're just like watching a bunch of actors say lines. I don't know. I just feel like they didn't. The specific director did not try create a world so much as an outline world.
Okay. So
that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. They went for a direction that was more personalized, but and that makes sense to the people in the show because you're the people that it is personal to. But to the average viewer, it's the show, and the goal is to make it personalized by the end. But the way you do that is by enveloping, not by expecting it to be personal from moment one.
So if I'm understanding correctly, did they minimize the actual written-in personalities of the characters? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's like how Hello Kitty doesn't have a mouth, so you can decide what Hello Kitty is feeling.
Exactly what it is, yes.
That's a really cool way of summing it up.
It's just abstract enough that you could basically determine who these characters are in your own head. The problem is there's an expectation that you're going to do. Not everyone goes into a show to do their own world building.
Yeah.
Okay. So, our next question, moving on, is, how does the lack of a script change a performance? So, basically, I'm just trying to talk about improv here. All of us have done all of us have done improv. Like, Joseph, I know you're in one or two improv groups at school.
I'm in a improv group.
Okay, you're in an improv group at school. Kevin, have you ever, like, other than, like, jumping in on games and doing, have you ever had a performance with improv?
I've basically just done.
Okay.
Or really joined a troupe. No.
Okay, so and I took Isaac's class second semester last year for improv. So it's really interesting because I feel like the lack of a script means that the emotions that you provoke are even greater because it feels so much. That's something that I feel like feeling personalized isn't that hard because it isn't predetermined. It's like, as an audience member watching improv go down, it's interesting because, like, you know that what you're watching is not what the person the night before watched, and you know that, like, the people on stage hardly know, like, what's coming next either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's, like, it's harder to invoke those emotions because you don't have something to fall back on. You just have yourself to hit it. But when the emotions you do invoke from the audience are, like, truer, if that makes sense, because they're more, like, raw.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, it's like and trying too hard to control the experience without letting it be organic does really, and will just, like, make the experience weaker overall. So not only is it, like, a strength, it's like the strength of improv is that it's a personal, organic process.
Okay.
It also asks a lot of different things from you as I guess I'll use the word actor just because that's what we've been doing, but it asks a lot of different things of you compared to, like, a scripted, like, play, because first of all, being funny is hard.
It is.
And because, like, at least when you have a script, you're, like, given, like, this is what you say, make it funny.
Yeah, and that's
whereas in an improv comedy sort of situation, you're just given the make it funny bit.
Yeah, it's
and
being funny in an environment where, like, it's because I don't know, making people laugh as a thing isn't hard when you're not being asked to. In the sense where it's like, when you're in an environment where people are like, make me laugh, it gets really hard. I didn't mean to interrupt, Joe. Like, go on.
Oh, no, you didn't interrupt me at all. And so, like, the way that we do improv shows at UMF, there's one improv group on campus, the Lawn Chair Pirates. They're delightful. And the general way that they handle doing shows is that they'll do mostly the same games that, like, people do for, like, improv games in front of a crowd, which I'm not sure is how most improv troupes do it, but it's how we do it. And so, like, some of them are games where someone wins, some of them are just things that people do until we clap ourselves off. But I think, I don't know, the lack of, like, it's really, really freeing as long as you're able to, like, basically as long as you can handle it and know when a bit is not working or will go too far. You're just basically writing a script as you go.
Okay. Kevin, you're someone who, even though you might not have, like, had a troupe or something, I've seen you, and, like, improv seems to be one of your, like, best state of being. So, like, as someone who makes people laugh really well without a script and acts a lot with a script, what's the big changes that you know of? What are feelings and, like, different things that you try to invoke?
I'm the kind of person, like, in any situation will just, like, regularly say what the heck ever is on the top of their minds without any filter, like, at any given point anyway. So, like, when thrown into an improv setting, I think what, like, sort of hampers other people is they try to like stop and think about what would be funny in a situation, whereas I say literally the first thing that comes to my mind and like act as if it makes sense to me, I guess. Which, like, obviously it's like something that people who are more experienced would do anyway. You know, I'm just saying, like in settings where I've done like improv games with other people who've never done improv. I also have like unique experience of like getting my own scripts and filming them for like a show. We used to have like a web series that we would have to keep up back in high school. It was me and my buddy Lucas, and we called it Kevin and Lukewarm Pursuit. And it was basically, you know, it was a weekly, no, like a quarterly show that we did. And my experience with that is, you know, you would write the scripts, you would write the jokes. Like sometimes the joke wouldn't be as funny as like something we would come up with off the top of our heads, like during, and then you know we would just use that and see which take was funnier. And oftentimes it was, you know, garbage that just on the fly. So yeah, go ahead.
And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that like a lot of people will say like comedy is based on subverting people's expectations and surprising people. And so like in a way like improv is like a really big opportunity because you get to like surprise yourself. And so a lot, and it's really funny because like a lot of like the things that you craft and are like proud of as a performer like get like little to none out of a crowd when you're like, I was very proud of that. I thought that was clever. Whereas for example, there's this one recurring bit that comes up that is mostly because it's funny to us, but also because it's maybe the most offensive laugh that we've ever received from a crowd, where we have this graduating member of the troupe named Brock. And one time, like 2 years ago, it was 2 years ago now. They were doing this bit where it was a press conference, and my man was a reporter, and he walks up and he just says, "Hello, yes, this is Brock Bubar from the Brock Bubar Times." And for some reason, everybody in the house went mental, and they still bring it up to him from time to time. And it was just, it's such a volatile, like, comedy in general is so volatile, and like you never know what people are going to laugh at or not. And then when you don't know what you're going to say, like it's got a lot of peaks and valleys to it.
I can definitely feel that. When I was in Isaac's improv, I definitely, like, there were moments where I'd walk out, say something, and absolutely tear up the room. And there would be other times where, like, you're in the middle of a scene and it's like, we haven't done anything that's, like, we haven't even set up a joke or made a joke at all in the past, like, 40, 50 seconds, and I'm getting antsy, and that makes it worse. And it's really, it has this strange momentum to it. And, also, I feel like that brings up a really curious point for, like, a little sub-question off of this. That, in improv, it's possible to, like, build expectations like Brock Bubar from the Brock Bubar Times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's a thing that people try to work in now?
They don't necessarily, he doesn't necessarily try to work it in. He does have recurring characters that he uses. He has a lot of memorable stuff because he's a memorable person and he's just, like, very naturally funny. It's more so that, like, because we're in Farmington, Maine, there's not a lot of media around. So, like, the Lawn Chair Pirates is, like, a kind of, like, anticipated event whenever performances come around. And so, like, it's more that he's, like, has, like, this, like, local notoriety to him, and people will be like, oh my god, is that Brock Bubar from the Brock Bubar Times?
Okay.
And, like, it's a bit that, like, I think he's tried to let die.
Okay. But do you think that still like when it comes to he has some characters that he does, do you think that there is something to be said for like expectations in a improv performance?
Yeah. Have you ever been to Rocky Horror?
I have seen Rocky Horror Picture Show one time as a movie. Yeah.
Was it? But were there people there?
Yeah,
like,
it was. I was at the movie theater I work at, like during an event.
So did you experience the divine art of callouts?
Yes, I did.
I think it's almost a similar culture to that, where like it's not like an improv you have people like yelling. Well, actually we do sometimes, but like, it's just like this like weird microculture that builds up around it, where like if you talk to people who go to improv things whenever they happen every month, they'll be like, yeah, you know, Brock Boobar from the Brock Boobar Times, and it just is something that like never dies.
Okay. So, sticking with improv as a theme for the next question, can improv be used for a genre beyond comedy, and why is comedy the predominant genre in improv? So, when I think improv, like, there's obviously tons of improv entertainment. Technically, like, what we're doing right now is, like, we have prompts, and now we're just speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I feel like when I hear about, like, an improv troupe or an improv group, comedy is what it's entirely based on. Do you guys think that, like, even though you were just saying comedy's extremely volatile and you don't know what will get what, you don't know how crowds will react to different stuff, do you think it's just there's the most window for the most entertaining, like, pieces in comedy, or what do you guys think?
Well, I think that like as I was saying before, I think a lot, like half of comedy is surprising people, and like just like I don't know, I think not only is improv like suited towards comedy, it's like one of the best ways to be the most funny, because I don't know, it's well I do know it's just like an organic environment where people don't know what to expect, and it's once you know what to expect that like things get less funny.
Okay. That's
And
keep going. Sorry.
oh no, no, you're good. Go ahead.
I think a lot of the elements that make comedy so good work to make something like horror really good. I think like the reason that you don't see like a lot of improvised horror is because the things you don't expect is in horror usually have like a lot of money put into them. It's usually like a lot of special effects and stuff. That's not something that like everyone has a lot of access to, and it's something that you can't really put together without a ton of. I think the reason that like improv comedy works so well is that you could just get out there and do it without like having a bunch of preparation time. Like a lot of the time they're just like given like a word or like a simple setup, and they just go. They like don't need like effects or anything. Whereas like if you tried to do like the horror obviously wouldn't work. Maybe drama would work. Like I think like the element of just surprise, like as soon as you get one laugh, I think that's sort of the direction that it's destined to go in from that point. Like drama would be harder to like stay in that state.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a problem when I like watch movies that are like scripted things, where when something surprising happens, like my first reaction is not to go like, oh no, if it's like even if it's a dramatic movie, my first reaction is that I just like can't help but laugh. Like I'm gonna give a specific example, but like in the film Joker, at one point
I haven't seen it yet. Go on.
okay, so
Haven't seen it yet?
at one point he's riding in this is a spoiler, he's riding in a police car, and like there's rioting in the streets and things are going absolutely bananas, and they get T-boned by a ambulance at like full speed, and something about it, which is inherently a big like oh god, was
Like a travesty.
in the moment, the most hilarious thing I think I had seen in a long time. And it's just because like you don't expect it, and I think it's just what you do when like you get surprised is your first thing goes, oh wow, instead of like
I think
actually
it's also
thinking about it.
I think it's also because that movie is just super surreal.
Yeah.
Like it creeps on you and like gets under your skin. And like every moment there's something that's like demanding a reaction from you. Like
Yeah.
it catches you off guard. And I feel like, laughing is sort of how you deal with surreal things.
Yeah.
That's sort of like what the art of comedy is, like dealing with pain. That movie just like eats off of that. It just keeps throwing painful situations at you.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to laugh because that's what the lead is doing, is laughing at it.
I have seen, I actually think I've seen sad improv, but like once again, it like stems from like the weird little microculture around improv we have here, where last year one of the individuals was graduating, and for some inside baseball, whenever we're deciding like what things we're going to do at the at performances, we kind of draw straws, and people have things that they prefer being in, and so like people get associated with things. And so this dude and his girlfriend, who was a year younger than him, had this bit that they liked to do with each other a bunch, where they had these little characters that they made up. And so it was like one of the more predictable things, is you would know that they would be like doing these posh British accents, doing this game called Classy, and it was basically just like them causing mayhem and doing it in a way that's like British. And they decided that like halfway through that they were going to find a way to kill off their characters, and it was like very, very funny. And then this dude was like a really good actor, because he was Hamlet the year before, and so he like knew how to like work an audience, and he like just like started like rambling about how much he was gonna like miss like doing stuff, and like people cried, and it was entirely because he was like a very, very talented man, and people had this like personal like repertoire with what they were experiencing. And like, so like if you went to like a single improv show, you'd be there being like, man, he's getting really into this, isn't he? But due to like the little culture around it that people built up, people like reacted really strongly to it.
Do you think that like that's really interesting? There is nothing more tragic than the end of good comedy.
Yeah, it was like D&D. Like that's like the closest thing I can think to it is like they had like these like characters that they liked, and they were like putting them to bed the best they could.
And like, yeah, it's, even though those characters were made for comedy, it still like had this tragedy to it, because it's like, it's obviously, we all know like the don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened kind of thing, but it's hard, and letting go of something that creates such positive emotions and accepting that thing that creates such positive emotions is leaving can really knock the wind out of you. And
we do have a ritual for killing graduating pirates.
Okay.
And so like then they died. They drowned. We drown them in a bucket of water.
In a bucket of water.
They get very wet and angry.
Alright, so, I think after this, I believe this one's our last question coming up. Yes, so this is more personalized. What's your favorite script you guys have worked with? Was it because of the writing in the script or the way the director handled it? And I know there are more options beyond that, but I want to try to keep it script focused. So, like, if it was because of, like, you just loved the character, like, that's still script related. So, like, what was your favorite script you guys ever worked with?
You can go first.
Okay. I think my favorite script that I've ever worked with is, I loved Cut, which was one of the one acts Joseph and I did in high school. But just this past fall, when I did Significant Other, that was really, really amazing script, because it's written in such a modern way. Like, I know that one of the theater professors at Johnson already like approached the student director of it and said that she was not so into the script, but like, and while there are like writing imperfections in here, I've been in scripts that were written in the modern day. So they use modern, like, phrases and speech patterns and all the some such. But this is the only script where it really felt like, for better or for worse, the writer, Joshua Harmon is the name of the playwright. And it feels like he was super dedicated to, no matter, like, for better or for worse, the characters being as human as possible and speaking in as human a way as possible. So they're like all these inside jokes and like other things that like maybe it can be hard to get the audience in on, but it feels just so real and good. And so like it's a script that's really, really close to my heart. And also the director just, I believe she was somebody who chose the script and said, the script is really, really good. I'm going to focus mainly on the actors and the blocking and the more physicality of it because the writing is really good. So it's a Significant Other by Joshua Harmon is really, really close script to my heart. Which one of you guys wants to go next? Favorite script?
Do you have one?
I can talk about one if you don't have one.
I do. I'm just
okay. You should go for yours. I still have to think.
Oh, when I was in high school and doing only musicals, we attempted to tackle the musical from the '60s known as "It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman," which holds up about as well as you think it would. Including a troupe of Chinese acrobats that speak exactly how you think Chinese acrobats would speak in the '60s in any form of media.
Oh, God.
So, we had to cover that up by making Vikings. What was delightful about this script is it just unabashedly, like, gave you a sense of the era by looking at it. And at the same time, it was just tried to be comic book it took play script, made it look like it was like a plot ripped straight from a comic book. As a big old weeb was something that was like, really fun with me. I got casted as a scientist who sort of gave off like homoerotic like tendencies. Only one song in the show, for whatever reason. So I sort of let that bleed into character. I think the reason I like the show as a whole, Abner Sedgwick aside, is because of the way we handled it. Director, it was the same director who did A Christmas Spark. He just loved the campy nature. Like, sort of wanted to entertain an audience more than tell them a good story, which is admirable in a way. So we just like dressed the whole stage up like big, flashy neon backdrops and like flaccid stuff, like red, yellow, and blue city skyscraper type deals. People walking by with foam cars that are painted in bright colors. It was all down to like actors who had the comic book lines painted on their face during the entirety of the show, like forcing them to like act through it like Jim Carrey style. It was dressed up beautifully.
That sounds really, really special.
Nice.
Joseph, you got one yet?
Yeah.
Experienced actors.
So I'm gonna go for the I think that you might be expecting this, Kian, but I'm gonna say "Cut" by Ed Monk is my favorite script I've ever worked with.
Yes.
And it might actually be for the opposite reason that you chose yours.
Okay, love that.
So "Cut" by Ed Monk is a play about actors who are playing actors in a play. Basically, it goes like it's turtles all the way down. It's a play within a play within a play within a play within a play, etc., etc.
There are 7 total layers at the end.
Yeah.
Delightful.
And even then, it's unclear whether or not it's who they are or if it's just the last play down. Because there's a twist ending where the director appears and was like, good job, cut. And so as like kind of a necessary result of that, the script is written so that you're never sure whether or not you're seeing like anything sincere from the actor themselves, like from the like even the character themselves or the character that character is playing at that given time, which is first of all really interesting as an actor because it means that these people have to figure out like basically they get to decide several characters that they're playing instead of just one, and then they have to figure out the logistics of playing a character who's playing another character. And so basically you're given like these Hello Kitty masks to put on where you get to decide how to inhabit this like role. And I think that much like it's like another deal like I was talking about early on where it's all about how much you're willing to put into it. And so if you're willing to like fully flesh out this role that you've been given that's like, hey, here's an empty doll, it's yours, inhabit it, you spirit, it can be really interesting. And even beyond that, there were these bit characters that came in who were named. No other characters were named except for these characters that were in like it's a one act, and so these characters were in there for like, what do you say, like 5 minutes?
It was, yeah, and it was a short one act too. It was 40 minutes long. They were in there for like 3-4 minutes.
And so first of all, there were these 2 girls at a party, and you don't know anything about them, but they do that thing where they like have like inside knowledge and they name drop people that you've never heard of up to this point. And then you learn that like one of their boyfriends that they've been fighting over died in a drunk driving accident. And it just blindsides you in this way that like I think only comedy can, where like just because like everything stops, like the play stops and becomes like a PSA about drunk driving after like the entire plot has been derailed as these strangers start speaking to you, the audience. And I just think it's really interesting because I was like part of this play, and so I got to watch these people get shown these 2 characters and be like, all right, how are we gonna do this? What's our story here? And then the reason that it's my favorite play script I've worked with is the 2 other bit characters, one of whom was me, named Jack and Nick, who were supposed to come in, like talk about changing a light bulb, talk about their Vietnam and their failing marriages for a second, and leave. And we had a student director who really flexed his creative muscles on us.
He's a genius.
And so he got me and an individual that I'm very close to, and was like, how willing are you to be gay with each other? And so we made this scene as homoerotic as possible, and we faked people out, made it look like we were going to kiss, and none of it was written in the script. And I think that the vagueness of the script there, like, really was like nothing but benefit to it. Because you just have these like 2 sad men talking to each other, and we decided to take it in the gay direction, the gay sad men. And the audience really reacted to it. And I think that if we just did it blankly and just like took it as like, okay, I guess these characters do this, it wouldn't have been as strong. But because the script gave that wiggle room for us to put our own energy into the role as it is, it feels more sincere and it feels more natural. And like the audience, I think, really usually appreciates that when like you can feel that it makes it feel less like actors, and it makes it feel more like you're watching something happen in front of you. And I think it's kind of magical. And so I'm really glad that it was written in a way that left a lot of room to grow into the roles.
Cut was an amazing show. The writing was... I definitely think the writing was totally designed for, like, because it doesn't make any sense anyway. The actors and directors can go nuts in just, like, finding the meaning you want to find in it. There were so many, like, little bits and pieces of, like... Because there are so many different layers, and, like, with each layer, it was, like... figuring out, like, all these little things, like, in the beginning, when it just seemed like it was going to be some basic thing, like, my character was, like, dating Megan's character who was cheating on another guy's character, and, like, but then it gets deeper, and because you were taking it seriously and you had these emotions about it, when you go to the next layer, you just felt so, like, absolutely dropped of the emotions you were having, so you laugh. It's kind of like that T-bone thing that you were talking about, because it was like, it happens, and there might be some people who are like, oh my god, holy crap.
Yeah, Bobby died.
Like, yeah, but, oh yeah, Bobby died, man. But, like, it was just, I don't know. I don't want to rob, like, that was the script that was most special to you, because I committed to seeing another. But, yeah, definitely Cut by Ed Monk was fantastic.
Also, and, like, this is, and, like, I'm rambling, but I think that, like, maybe, like, the, like, smartest part of it, if I had to, like, name something, is that, I think it happened twice, where a character would be giving, like, lines that belonged to another character earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And so then you get to watch someone, like, as an actor, do their take on someone else's take as a character.
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. And, like, doing all these things that an actor did, I got to, in an actual show, on stage, got to do my impression of when I forgot a line and I had to call for line. In the show, there was a moment where I stopped talking and had to turn and go, line! And, like, it was absolutely hysterical because I was still acting, but I was, like, a weird... I don't know, that show was genius. Anyone listening to this right now, and Kevin, you read it. Just read it, and, like, maybe look it up to see if there's a performance online or something. It's absolutely genius. Fantastic show. So I think that is going to do it. Any closing notes that you guys want to have? Kevin? Joseph?
Theater be whack, yo.
Yeah, it does. It do.
On a blank.
All right. Well, I want to just close off with, like, I'm a writer. I have tried to write many things before, and I've been told that one of my better talents is dialogue. It's one of the things that I'm good at. So I've tried writing a show before. I've tried writing a 10-minute show. It is an absolute trip. I will tell you. Like, every good thing that we've said about a script so far is, like, extremely, extremely impressive, I can say, because I tried writing something, and it's like, even though I'm good at dialogue, so I'm good at people talking to each other, because all you have is dialogue or visual indication, it's not like a book where you can, like, give exposition with, like, exposition with, like, a paragraph, like, a backstory just in the paragraph or inside a character's mind or something. You have to either show it physically with visuals, or, like, have characters say it in an organic way, or else it feels horrible. So definitely, like, theater's crazy in the way that, like, writing interacts with it. So, thanks for joining me today, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Alrighty, so, thanks for watching or listening, everybody. Well, mostly listening, because the visuals are just the questions. But, thanks very much for listening, and, this was the Script or Scrapped podcast. Thanks very much.